Hello and welcome to the Gig Stories podcast with me, Chris Payne.
And me, Alex Winters. Welcome, welcome. Okay, no messing about here. I'm going straight in. Since the last episode, Chris, over the past couple of days, gigs are being announced. And by that, I mean festivals have announced themselves. Some festivals have rescheduled dates. Artists, bands are announcing rescheduled dates. And I just don't know how excited I should be.
You don't know where to put yourself, do you?
No, I don't. Because I am so, me and my 14-year-old daughter, Grace, we were looking at Neighbourhood Festival, which is a festival local to us here in the Northwest. And we were looking at the lineup and we were just hugging and jumping around thinking we might actually see Sam Fender in September because we've been trying for 2 years now. And I just don't know how excited to be. Temper my excitement. All right, I'm lying. I am really excited, okay? And I'm purposely playing it down. But please tell me, how are you feeling about potential live gigs again, Chris?
I am cautiously optimistic. I have doubts. I have doubts about some of the early gig dates or festivals. I think that summer, certainly June, July, I'll believe it when I see it. But I think it's good news if it's start of autumn. But I suppose it's all dependent. These are kind of best case scenario things. So I know we were not wanting to get all political and stuff, so we won't. It's just about. No, and we haven't even talked about the headliner of Neighbourhood Festival either.
Well, no, Saturday night, Ian Brown has been replaced by your absolute favourites, James. And so that Saturday night now is James, Sam Fender, and one of my all-time favourites, Shed 7.
The Sheds.
I could do a little wee just thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on Zoom and not in the same room.
Well, you can see, they can't. The other thing I'm thinking about that I keep thinking is, will it also be different with outdoor gigs to indoor gigs? So I think I may have said already that at the moment, the only indoor gig ticket I have is for October, and it's Turin Breaks at Manchester Cathedral. And I'm thinking, oh, well, is a festival more likely to go ahead than an indoor one around that? There's so much to think about.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not thinking about it. I think I'd tie myself up in knots if I thought too hard about it.
You can try and be, Mr. Common Sense there. You are thinking about it because it means you're going to be back in the photography camera pit, whatever you call it, and I'll be an old man in the mosh pit with the kids.
No, I know, and I was thinking about having a look at all the gigs that are coming up in Manchester and looking at sorting out photo accreditation and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering if I'm just setting myself up for a fall there, and so I should maybe I might just give it a week. Put some things in light pencil rather than biro,
okay,
and then see where we are in a week.
I think there's something, though, that we can both agree on that we have discovered through the lockdown, is that when you get back to music gigs and sorting your accreditation, you will need a +1 so that I can carry all your bags, because we have realised that you've let your biceps and your triceps go a bit. You're a little bit weak and feeble now, so you're going to need someone strapping. They're not available, so I can carry your camera bags. That's
weak and feeble. Okay. Not well. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've got a bit of a dodgy back sometimes. We'll use that. We'll go with that.
Dodgy, but he's got a dodgy. Oh no, we can't go with that because my back is even dodgier. That'll look pathetic.
Yeah, two bad backs.
Please let us both in.
Yeah. Oh God.
I can't wait. Anyway,
have we got an episode?
Oh.
Sorry. Have we got an episode?
That's more like it. He's so professional.
Yeah.
We have got an episode. And speaking of live gigs, this episode today is with the beautifully sublime Kathryn Williams, who has been performing throughout the lockdown. She's been performing online gigs on her Facebook and Instagram page, and I tune in regularly. I listened last night. In fact, last night's was a belter, and I think you can watch them. So if you're listening to this when we release this episode, you may still have a few days to watch it, because, get this, Chris, last night Kathryn covered, she had a bit of a trip-hop Bristol thing going on.
Bristol vibe, yeah.
Yes, it was amazing, and I nearly cried. She did Teardrop by Massive Attack and Glory Box by Portishead, and she's just been brilliant. And we speak about her online performances. We also speak about what it's like to be pregnant and touring as a mother, and being managed by, what's that guy's name now?
Alan McGee.
Oh, that's right, Alan McGee.
Alan McGee, and she was managed by him for a good while, a good few years. We also talked to her about nerves and, well, not so much stage fright, but just kind of how to handle nerves and how she did it. And we'll maybe talk about that after the episode, because that's something that I know that I've certainly experienced as a musician.
But more importantly, though, Chris, what's the one thing that comes up? Showaddywaddy.
Showaddywaddy, yeah. Again, 2 episodes in a row, and I'll be very surprised if it comes up in episode 4. But it remains to be seen. I might just bring it up just because, and then we'll get somebody off Showaddywaddy to guest on the show. One last thing we did talk about was Kathryn's first novel, which I know she is signing copies of as we speak, for the first tranche of mail-outs. So her first novel, The Ormering Tide, which has been described as brooding and astonishing, and it does look amazing.
Very much like yourself.
Brooding and astonishing.
Yes, it's how I regularly describe you, I'll be honest, Chris.
Yeah, and as a puny weakling as well. So yeah,
but only so we can get into gigs.
It's a heady mix, isn't it?
If people could see you. Oh,
God, nobody needs that. Anyway, let's get on with the episode. Here we are with episode number 3. It is
Kathryn Williams.
Kathryn Williams. Enjoy.
Okay, so on Gig Stories today, we've got English, although I like to say Scouse singer-songwriter, who today has released 14 studio albums, has written and played with loads of artists, and was nominated for the 2000 Mercury Music Prize with her second album, Little Black Numbers. It's my favourite daughter of a uni friend, Kathryn Williams.
Oh, when you said favourite then, I was like, wow, how big is this going to get? But no, it's because of good old Mark and Dave at uni.
Well, do you know what? For Chris as well, probably, and for anyone listening, it was actually, I went to Liverpool to university, and I had a great time there, but also had a great musical time there. Saw so many great gigs, and one of my mates, one of my mates in uni, who like me was also a mature student, was very quick to lovingly boast about her daughter. Oh, my daughter's a musician, and she's got an album, and I was given that album, and I instantly fell in love with Dog Leap Stairs. And I'm going to be completely honest here, Kathryn. I listened to it twice today, and I had to stop, because we all have those albums that absolute mark a time. I had smells, feelings, emotion, everything that immediately took me back to being a student in Liverpool. And there's 3 albums that do that for me in those Liverpool years. And Dog Leap Stairs, that first album for yours, is one of them. And it just made me so emotional. The difference between that and how you sound now, you still have that beautiful voice, but it just seems so sort of inexperienced and fragile, and just got so emotional. So
well,
that's
it was. Oh.
Yeah, it's just it still is for me one of the most brilliant albums. And I was one of those saddos in 2000 that when you were nominated with Little Black Numbers, I'm like, yeah, but what about the first album? What about the first album?
I liked their earlier stuff.
You sold out, I'll be honest. Oh, God, Music Mercury Prize. I remember saying with your mum, she's changed, hasn't she?
Yeah. It's changed her. It's changed her, this not quite fame.
So that Chris, that's actually how I came to know Kathryn. And then it was really lovely because I was there meeting other people, especially in my favourite record shop back in Cardiff. And it was a girl called Grace. And she was like, Kathryn Williams. I just love Kathryn Williams. I said, yeah. She's a really, really good friend of mine.
Wow, you're such an arse.
Well, absolutely was. It was 99, Chris. I had to try and look cool to Grace in Spiller's records.
Oh my
Right,
God!
okay.
If that's what made you cool, I've never been cool. I can't believe someone was trying to be cool by trying to mention me. That's like.
Who are you kidding?
I feel sorry for you now.
You always have. First time you set eyes on me, that poor little Welshman. So Eddie, Kathryn, thank you so much for spending time with Chris and I. Really appreciate that. And especially at the moment, I've got to mention it because you are, if I'm not mistaken, spend a lot of time promoting your first book. Is that right?
Yeah, my debut novel is coming out in March, and I'm excited about it. It's I sort of did it secretly for like 5 years, trying to learn on the job and not telling anyone in case I failed. And I thought, I'm really pleased. I got an agent, I got a deal, and now I've got a book.
Oh, tell us about the book. Come on, tell us.
Go on.
Okay, elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I'll just
Got a
lean
copy?
over because I do Patreon. I've started reading the chapters to my patrons, like you would do in a Jackanory way.
Excellent.
So it says, the Ormering Tide is a coming-of-age story set amidst a series of darkly foreboding events. Roselle lives with her triplet older brothers and her parents in the bay of a small island. One of her brothers goes missing, and the family's landlord is implicated as the menacing truths are discovered. The island is rich with nature, and the islanders' lives and the steady passing of the seasons contrast sharply with the realities of violence and inevitable revelations. There we go.
Oh, I'm sold. I am sold. You know, I'm such a mean dad that when Gabe, my son, says, "Daddy, I had a really weird dream last night," I'd say, "Okay, elevator pitch," and because you know how stories about dreams are only interesting to the person who's telling you the story about their dreams, and so it's just elevator pitch. And I've sold it as, you've now learned about elevator pitches. So anyway, that book sounds amazing. I am a mean dad, aren't I? That's really bad parenting.
You know what?
No, I think it's good.
You've mentioned Gabe there, and for the listener, and for you as well, Kathryn, you may hear a fluttering of music in the background of this, and that's actually Chris's son Gabe, who's 10 years old and is a really talented young musician, and that's him practicing. And I think we rightly made the decision to not tell him to shut up, because this is all about live music, this podcast. So this could be in the future, Chris, I reckon, in 5-10 years, people listening to this going, no way, is that Gabe Payne playing in the background?
Just listen beyond the inane chattering of some adults at the genius going on behind.
Exactly. Well, their music, your son George and my son Gabe, they do the incidental music in this podcast. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that is right. We're putting them to work, Kathryn.
Absolutely.
Well, I think he's looking for like musician union rates, because like you've given him incidental music of like 5 seconds. On this episode he's going to be, but I was playing all the way through. I need my proper hourly rate.
Don't tell Tom Gray this. Don't tell Tom Gray. He'll be all over that. He'll be all over
to get on his PRS forms. Oh God.
So apart from writing the book, I have noticed it's been interesting to see over the past year how musicians have fared and what they've done. Some have just admittedly done nothing at all and not felt any pressure. Some have pursued other avenues. And what I like is that you set up a Patreon, and you've been doing live gigs on Instagram.
So I started the Patreon before the pandemic started, which was kind of lucky really, because it's really kept me going. Like for the core fans, they pay a monthly fee and I send them songs they can't get anywhere else, and photos and letters and little hand painted paintings that I've been doing over the years.
Hang on, photos?
Not those sort of photos. Just kind
of photo, but I just want to know what photo.
Like pictures of like me in the studio, and then a little letter, or like a video of me chatting to them in the car waiting for my son's taekwondo meeting. So it's kind of quite behind the scenes and personal. But when I say photos, it's not like full frontals or anything.
I didn't say that, Kathryn Williams.
Well, they'd have to pay more than £4.50 a month if that was the content, or maybe less than £4.50 a month, because I mean I don't think there is much market for that area. Oh my God!
Well, this has descended really quickly, hasn't it? That didn't take long at all.
Make a CBeebies presenter flash.
Yeah, that makes it worse, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the fact that you jumped straight on that makes me now think that headlines are going to be CBeebies interested in gaining
Patreon.
Yeah, in her Patreons. Sorry, this is getting ridiculous.
I was thinking more, Grief, you're an amazing musician, and then you happen to drop in that you've got a novel, and I honestly was thinking you're an artist. I know that. You fantastic painter. I was thinking a photographer as well. You're like taking the piss. That's what I was thinking. Leave some talent for the rest of us.
Jack of all trades and master of none. I think I just really like creating, and I just find it compelling, and that's why I carry on. So I mean, actually saying that, when the lockdown first happened, all my friends were doing online gigs and doing stuff, and I was absolutely paralysed by just the situation we were in as humans, and I just felt I was in the eye of the storm, and there was no way that I could make or create or write or even sing. And it was really, I didn't know quite how I was going to get out of it. And
how long did that last? Because I had the same thing.
It lasted quite a few months, and it was sort of compounded by the fact that I just kept seeing more and more of my friends connecting, and I was like, well, I can't do that. I'm not. And then I get the Red Letters, Nick Cave's subscription. Yeah. And I read one of those which was saying, it's fine if you're in the middle of a crisis, you don't have to be the person. There's bigger things going on. And that was really good. And when I read that, I thought, oh, well, maybe it's not about me. Maybe it's about connecting. So I learned my mum and dad's, well, one of my mum's favourite songs, which is a Dr. Hook song, Sylvia's mother. So I learned that, and I just FaceTimed them and did and sang that song just to them because I was really missing them. It was like my best gig ever because the two of them had their arms up in the air, and like my mum was crying and my dad was singing along, and it was really hard to even concentrate finishing the song. And they were so happy with it that I thought, oh, well, that's what it's about. I've just got to get over myself, and what it's about is connecting. So after that, then I felt like I could say yes to the plethora of like online gigs and charity things that I'd been asked to do.
Did you feel that it was that you said your friends, you felt they were connecting? Do you mean musician friends connecting with their audience?
Well, just being out there, because I watched a lot of them. I felt like, oh, there's things happening, you know, like this is my job. That's what I should be doing. I should be doing gigs. I should be singing to people, but I just couldn't. And actually, this whole year has been a really important thing because I never thought I was someone who would do like shows online, like Instagram or like Facebook or Zoom or things like that. It just never really occurred to me.
And so how have they been going? Because obviously they're worlds removed from a normal gig, but are there any positives that you get that you wouldn't get with a gig that was actually in front of real people in the same room?
Well, it's become absolutely brilliant, and it's something. So I do them on a Thursday on Instagram, and tonight I'm doing half of it on Facebook and half of it on Instagram because I realised that all my fans are on Facebook, and I've been doing it on Instagram for months and months. And I did a test on Facebook last Friday without lipstick on, and it got like thousands of views, and I was like, fuck's sake, I've been putting lipstick on Instagram every week. But I've grown to love it, and it's done so much for me. So I do it as a request show. So people give me covers that I have to learn and songs from the back catalogue, which I haven't played for months and months.
And is that just to keep it interesting, or is it just what was the decision-making process there?
Well, so that I had something to do, so I have to learn songs of mine that I've never played before and songs for other people, and it means that people who request it, then I can say, oh, this is for whoever, and then they get this connection starts to happen. And so the weirdest thing is that my job, apart from photo shoots and videos, which I absolutely hate, I've had to sort of see my own face at these gigs, which is like pretty horrific. But the good news is that there's chat over my face, which is normally, and that's been a different thing because you don't get chat in that same way at the gig. You know, if people don't really talk at my gigs, and if they do, they get shushed or something. Yeah. But on this, I'll be singing and they'll be chatting amongst each other. And then on the screen, it'll have like, oh, we saw you in da-da-da. And then someone will be like, oh, I was there. What row were you in? And so it's the other people all start to get this. It's a new layer of the people in the audience are connecting with each other. And then they come back each week. And yeah, there's been some weeks where I haven't wanted to do it and I've done it and I feel like loads better after it. And other weeks where, you know, I've had a really good one and then people have called and said, I look forward to this. So I don't know, it's just, it's something that's driven me forward, and I get to have that time to concentrate on music. So yeah, it's been great and I love it. I really love it now. It's special.
I love them, and you know, I've noticed that interaction as well on the Instagram. It's really cute seeing people pop up, and I'd put a couple of comments, and people were straight immediately replying to me, "Oh yes, this is great." And of course, I stamped my authority and said, "Whoa, I saw her in a bar in Chester in '99. Back off, back off."
Take a look at this tattoo.
I'm
In
top
between
Patreon.
my, I just pull my cheeks apart. If you can see her face, she's singing. Sorry, filthy.
So I'm going to take you right back now and ask about when you were growing up. Was there music in the house? Was there a lot of gig going or concert going that you and your family did? What was the setup?
So before I was born, my dad was in a folk band called the Abbey Folk, and when he left as the lead singer, Willie Russell took over his job in that band, and he gave all that up, being a dad, needing to make money and stuff, but he used to have friends round, so me and my sister would sit on the stairs and listen to them singing folk songs when they'd all hang out together. And so, I would listen to a lot of their records. I'd listen to a lot of like Janis Joplin, Bob Dylan, loads of Paul Simon. And my gran had like a dance set thing that she gave to me. And I used to listen to
a little record player.
Yes. So I had her dance set and her teas made in my room, in my bedroom growing up, thinking I was some sort of independent woman.
And you were.
Yeah. So I would listen to a lot of she had Nina Simone and Joan Baez and things. So I'd listen to that stuff. Yeah. But gigs, my first gig was Showaddywaddy at the... It was called the Pavilion, New Brighton Pavilion, and my mum and dad gave us a surprise. Yeah, so mum and dad gave us the surprise. We arrived at the New Brighton Pavilion, and they were like, "We're going to see Showaddywaddy," and we were very, very excited about that. And I remember it was. I think I was about 11, and it was a sort of sexual awakening because there was I don't know if you remember this about Showaddywaddy, but they used to wear suit jackets, but then their trousers were like leggings. And I just declined that. Sorry, it's my mum again.
I love that.
She's like, why have you declined me?
I'm talking about Showaddywaddy's pants, man.
Yeah, so I remember distinctly when I went and got my autograph, and I still have the photo with all of the signatures from Showaddywaddy.
No way.
I do, yeah, not here. It's not here. I don't know where it is.
Do you have the ticket stub?
I don't think I have the ticket stub, but I definitely have the photo with all of the signatures on.
I think, Chris, that might be better than the ticket stub. So Kathryn, Chris and I both realised that being the geeks we are, we both have scrapbooks that we've kept. And most of them are 90s. Chris has got a lot from more recent times as well, of all our ticket stubs. And so we've been discovering what our earliest first ticket stub is. And Showaddywaddy, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that Clint Boone's first gig as well?
It wasn't his first gig, but he was a big Showaddywaddy fan, and then punk came along, and Showaddywaddy got left in the dust.
I quite like the idea that it's 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. If you speak to every single person who's a musician from now on, and Showaddywaddy is the only thing that links them all, it would be so brilliant.
Well, that's one degree of Showaddywaddy from Clint Boone.
Yes. Yes. But I think that might be even better than ticket stub, is having the signed photograph from that first gig. Can you remember much about that gig, or would you be lying? Like, can you remember how it felt, and was it exciting, and the colours, the sound, or do you not remember much about it?
I remember that we were told to go and meet them at the front, and it was one of, like, I had to walk past lots of people down. It was like one of those big theatres, and you had to walk away, and then I got really scared, thinking, how am I going to find my mum and dad again? And that was like, that took over everything else. But yeah, they were like in really coloured suits, and yeah. Me and my sister just kept like laughing at the trousers, and I just remember that, really. That's what I remember. Really, really giant balls in tight trousers. And I think I was about, they were talking to us from sort of side of the stage. So I think my 12-year-old head was like directly sort of and it, whoever was in the red trousers had the biggest balls. So I've never actually spoken about this before, and like, maybe I should have waited and got therapy first before
Alex has lost
mentioning it on a Zoom.
I think we're going to have to give Alex a couple of minutes because he's just got Showaddywaddy balls in his head now.
I'm going to Google him. I want to see the red one.
I'm on already. I'm just having a look.
Already?
Yeah.
Episode title. I can't believe it's going to be called Showaddywaddy's balls. Oh, wowzers. So, was that...
I can't believe like I'm on a podcast to talk about music, and it always happens to me. I want to talk about, like, how much I love Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan, and like,
no.
And all of that stuff happens, and then what happens is I end up talking about Showaddywaddy's balls. It's a bit depressing.
Well, give them the respect they deserve. That's what I say. So
I've just found one image, and that image is going to stay with me for a while. So we'll maybe post that on the website or on the.
Well, Kathryn's got the photo somewhere, so we'll sign photo. So was that then the first of sort of regular gigs? And by the way, New Brighton Pavilion, that's still going, isn't it, as a venue? I believe.
Yeah. I mean, Showaddywaddy is probably still playing there.
Probably.
So I used to go. We used to go to loads of Everyman like shows that the theatre, because lots of that had live music, and that was a big part of our growing up, really. But then I was sort of like teenager. It was a lot of indie bands, but it was like we used to go to clubs and dance to stuff. Like, I remember I'd go to the Cavern and I would always ask for the Sugar Cubes song hit, and that was my song that I would ask for, which is so weird now, all these years later, being on Bjork's label, and feels mad.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Serendipity there.
Yeah, and all of the sort of Britpop stuff, because I was managed by Alan McGee for like 8 years, so I went to a lot of gigs, but don't have ticket stubs because I'd get in, because
you were on the guest list, yes.
Yeah, but that sounds much more sort of I don't know, mic drop knobby than it actually was. No. I mean, the number of times I was backstage at a Libertines gig and like looking for a reason to leave so I could go home to bed. And one time I remember talking, because the drummer's so lovely in that band, we used to chat loads. Yeah. And he's so nice. Nice. Yeah. And there was like a lot of strange, what you can imagine going on backstage at one of those gigs, and they were saying, "Oh, stay," and I was like, "I've been gardening all day. I've got really And I've forgotten to feed the cat. I'm just going to go home, feed the cat, and go straight to bed. So yeah, those days.
Kathryn Williams backstage at Libertine gigs is just.
Yeah.
How did I not know that about you? I mean, that is that is quite brilliant. So, you jump from Showaddywaddy to backstage with the Libertines. I love it.
Yeah.
What do you class, or can you remember, specifically as your own first gig as a musician, as Kathryn Williams?
Well, I did a gig at the Tyne Theatre in Newcastle supporting a band called The White Fence. I can't remember what happened to them, but
they should have been a lot bigger with that name, really.
Let's pick it for that.
Hey.
Anyway, I know. So, and for that was my big first gig. And what I did for that was I made 50 CDRs and I hand painted each cover and letrasetted the cover, which
Amazing.
Took so much time. Anyway, so somewhere in the world there's 50 copies of that I sold all 50 in the gig. And
wow,
then
that's great.
And then just after that, I got interest from London Records at the time, and I went in to do my demos, which I'd asked them if I didn't want to sign with them, would they give me them? And half of that is Dog Leap Stairs. So that was a really seminal time, really, for me.
And what year would that have been?
I think that was 98.
Right, okay. Because then Dog Leap Stairs you released in 99, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So it all happened really quickly. I mean, that was part of the problem of my agoraphobia and stage fright and passing out early on. That, like, the first 5 years of my career, I used to sit down to play because I would black out all the time with nerves.
Wow, it was as serious as that?
Yeah, really, really bad.
So how did you manage to overcome that?
I get asked this quite a lot because, well, I don't know why, but I just kept on playing and kept on turning up, even though it was horrific. I mean, when the Mercury thing happened, I was just a terrible, terrible wreck of. I mean, I couldn't really speak to people. I found it just such self-hatred on stage, thinking that people were going to laugh at me and that people were going to tell me that I shouldn't be there because I wasn't qualified. Just massive imposter syndrome. And also just like proper, like, blind fear of anything and everything that could happen. I don't know. So I remember when that stage fright started to dissipate was when I was on this really big tour supporting Ray LaMontagne. He was playing big venues and I was pregnant, not by him. and he was really tired because he'd done a world tour and I was, like, really hormonal. So I was, like, mothering him. So every night I'd put something different in his dressing room to cheer him up. So it would be like tea bags, Yorkshire tea, or Tunnock's tea cakes, or, and the band started to get really excited with what would be in the room each night. It was really good fun. And but I remembered that my fear had started to go, and I realised that there was something more important than me and my ego and fears, and there was something growing inside me, and how the hell was I going to get it out? I think it was just, so when men ask me, oh, I've got that, how do I get over it? I haven't really got good advice, because telling them to get pregnant, might.
That would have been mid 2000s.
Yeah. It's about 2006, 2007.
So off the top of my head, album 5, 6?
Yeah, about album 6. Yeah, by that time I was letting people into the studio, because before then, definitely the first 2 albums, I was too shy to sing in the studio with anyone else in there. It was crippling. It was really crippling.
And that was the same feelings when you would walk on stage?
Yeah, I just had a massive dread that I would forget how to do it, or that I would throw up, or, well, I would black out. But you know, things would. I just had a terrible fear that, like, kind of a shame that I would be laughed at. Yeah, it's funny sort of thinking back on it, because now I still get really nervous and mess up. But I think as soon as I realised that, like, owning your own vulnerability is actually, like, really strong, then that really helps.
That's incredible that you would get so far into not just recorded, but to a live career. It took you so many years to then feel comfortable. Well, how do you feel now when you go on stage now? Is there any kind of comfort?
I love it. I'm still scared, but I sort of embrace it now in a weird, not sadistic way, but like I sort of feel like it's okay to not be like the showman, and like if I mess up or if this happens, I feel like the audience are with me. And I felt like that with Instagram as well. There's a lot of warmth, and I think connection, really. Like, that vulnerability is like kind of my superpower now, whereas I always tried to hide it before that.
So considering your feelings when you are playing live, do the sound of your audience, and I know they're not a raucous audience, but does that create more nerves, or does it settle you? You know, whether that's the applause at the end of a song, or, you know, did that help you at all? Or would you rather no, there's no one out there?
I used to be really scrutinizing of what was going on and sort of read into anything. So if it wasn't enough loud applause, I would think that people would hate it, but they were just being considerate or polite, you know. Or if there was talking, like, I would like absolutely like hate that person and stare at them and get really like angry about it. And it's just so stupid, that thought process, because people have come and paid to be there. But yeah, it was all me. It was all my paranoia, and nothing to do with them. I did have quite a lot of, I do have a lot of very quirky people who come to my gigs who I don't think go out a lot otherwise. And I love them. So I get sort of very interesting like heckles. So that's good.
Okay. There's no way you can say that and then me not ask you, I want your best heckles, please.
Well, I remember on the South Bank, I think it was the QEH, there's a woman who really just didn't want to stop saying things to me. But she had done a gig and then she done a song, and then she sort of half stood up and she went, I heard you on the radio. And I was like, great. And she was like, I'm Gordon Brown's press secretary, you know. And I was like, fantastic. Like, this is to like hundreds of people. And then
I'm guessing she wasn't Gordon Brown's press secretary. I'm just going to go out there.
I didn't know. I don't know. Just crazy. Oh yeah. Someone said. Someone shouted that they loved Joni Mitchell once in a concert, and I was like, oh, that's great. Well, have you ever been to see her live? And they said, no, can only afford you. which I did like absolutely love.
That's a cracker.
So yeah.
Let's be honest, take that as a compliment, you know.
Yeah.
Gig tickets are very expensive, but who's got an even better voice than Joni Mitchell?
It's the oldie Joni.
I love that. I want to ask you about you playing live, because over the years I've seen you in various incarnations, and I'm interested in that because quite often when you watch an artist live, you generally know what you're getting setup wise. I've seen you just on your own, you and a guitar. I've seen you with you and a cello, or I've seen you with two-stringed instruments, or I've seen you with a full band. I've seen you with the Crayonettes, which it was an incarnation of you and a friend started a band, which was essentially a children sort of based, a band for children, songs for children and family, even though I listened to that album on my own. I love it. What's the thought process through that, for that? Because that's from the very beginning, since I saw you for the first time. How do you decide what you want, when you want? What do you take into consideration?
I think it's just like the songs that I write and what they tell me they need, often for the instrumentation and where I feel like that's going, or if I've got a body of songs and I want to try something else. I've always, because like pop people think I'm folk, folk people think I'm pop, and all of these sort of like genres. Really? I've never been accepted by the folk world or vice versa, the pop world. So I sort of fall down the back of the sofa. But the good news, which is good, except when you have algorithms like Spotify and stuff, and you can't get on any sort of genre or generic lists, then that's a pain in the arse. But I do find that it's sort of freed me up, and also because I've never been in search of commercial fame and success. Well, I remember Alan talking to me about it, Alan McGee, when he was my manager, saying, he said, you've got a really, really good knack of making an album that has a sound and getting people to like that, and then completely disowning them on the next album. And so I think that's what I've done. I started off with like a lot of fans, and then each time they think they know where they are with me, I do something else because that's interesting, and I'm on a long journey of just trying to find out stuff. And I want it to be fresh and to learn new things and to work with new people. So I just make different records. I don't want to make the same record.
No, so it's a slippery slope, I think. If you start going, well, what was that? Let's work out what the formula was for that album, and let's repeat it. And you know, it's a real slippery slope. I think you have to look after yourself really as a musician, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not interested in like trying to sort of create a brand or, you know, or a thing like that. I've just never, well, I mean, I just haven't done it. And I think there's lots of people who have done it and have done it successfully and without the cynicism, but it's just not for me. I just want to keep
live
doing.
Then, live, was that to keep you interested or keep it exciting? Is that why you would sort of change who you had as well? Do you have 2 or 3 arrangements of every song, you know, you've done? Because you think, oh, sometimes I might want to do this album with musicians or just me, or was it to keep you interested and to keep it sort of fresh?
Yeah, well, it was just sort of it's falling into things and finding people that you have connections and relations with. So I've done a lot of work with Neil McCall because we just sort of read each other really well, and I love his playing and his sensibilities, and he feels like family now. And, you know, early on with the band that we started off with, like a lot of those musicians decided they wanted like real jobs, or like they wanted security, or they didn't want to do it anymore. And, you know, people fall away along the journey and, you know, want to settle down or want to become teachers or, you know, do other things.
Yeah.
So I think like the natural sort of relationship with musicians is one big part of it. And then also taking a risk. So started working with Anthony Kerr, the vibraphone player. He was the wild card that Kate St. John had put in on the Quickening album that we did all live in 4 days with like a brilliant band. And we just didn't know if that was going to work. And it was a massive risk because after 4 days of recording, that was in Brynderwyn in Bethesda.
Diane, I love it.
Yeah. And after those 4 days, if we didn't like what we'd heard, there was so much bleed on everything that we'd just, you know, that would just be all the money from the record gone. But I mean, luckily they were just brilliant players. So yeah, it depends, you know, sometimes you just really need a break from some people that you've been on the road with for like 2 years, and they might be the nicest people in the world, but like, you know, they like sit in a van with you for 7 hours, and the way they smack their lips together, you just want to kill them. So, you know, you do need breaks from people, and you need to sort of form new friendships and relationships. Yeah.
You must have a great ability to adapt, because in doing that, you've got to adapt to other people's working processes and habits, I'm assuming. Is that something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I do. Well, so I do a lot of co-writing now and like collaborative work, and I really love that. And I just think you get so much more, you learn so much more from seeing how someone else does it and how you show them how you do it. It's like when you show someone how to cook your favorite meal or something, you become sort of aware of the things that you do, and they're like, oh, what are you doing? And oh, it's just a pinch of this. But you know, you sort of have to explain your processes, and I really enjoy that.
But when you perform live then with someone new, does that give you new anxieties, or is that just something you just live with and you just manage?
Well, the brilliant thing about live is that there are so many there's so many elements that can go right and go wrong, and like often with a good gig, you just don't always know what can make it. Like often if I have a really bad sound check, I think, oh, it's going to be a great gig because this sound check has just been so hellish that, you know, but sometimes, you know, like it can just transform you, and you can do a good gig despite of things, or if all of the technical things are going right, you can be free enough in your mind. And often it's like what you're getting back from the audience. There's other times when even if there was no one around, there'll just be that one time where you do something with the guitarist on stage where you're doing something new and no one else will know you're doing something new, but it's the playful sort of thought process between the two of you that's instantaneous and not planned, and it just gives you a massive rush of joy, and you come off and you'll both say at the same time, oh, Candy says that was the best time we've done it on tour or something, you know, and it's just like those are the sort of joyous moments that happen. But
as an audience member, when you see that happening on stage, that's when it becomes really magical. I mean, one of my favourite bands, well, full stop, but certainly to see live, are Lau. I don't know if you've heard them, Alex. So it's Aidan O'Rourke on violin, Martin Green plays accordion, and Chris Drever sings and plays guitar. And as a unit, I mean, they're fantastic, phenomenal musicians in their own right, but when they come together, there's something just magical that happens. And I've never come away from a gig that Lau have done not been, bouncing home. But they do that, and you can see that as they're enjoying each other's playing, and but it's not a kind of noodly, wanky thing. They're not trying to outdo each other. They're just enjoying making the best sound they possibly can with each other at the same time. And but yeah, it's great as an audience member, I think.
Yeah, because something happens that it doesn't become like a learnt thing, and it's a playful thing, and it's also, I mean, it is like sort of seeing a shooting star or something. It's like a happening that you're part of and you're actively involved in, but it's like a relationship thing as well. It's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do some quick-fire questions, which tend not to end up being particularly quick, but we'll see how we get on. So, your favourite vocalist that you've seen live, who would that be?
I saw an amazing gig with Devon Sproul at the Clooney 2, and it was for the Gold String album, and I'd seen her supporting my friend Paul Smith, and I'd loved her support show, and then she came and did her own solo show the year after, and it absolutely blew me away. Like, she's an amazing guitarist, and like, I don't know, there was just something about that gig. It was absolutely packed, and she blew me away, and it made me, it was one of the first, I felt so relaxed watching it because I knew she was in complete control, but she wasn't like perfect. It was just, yeah, I loved that show.
Okay, I love that. Considering what you've told us about you, what is your personal favourite gig that you've performed where you just came off and thought, oh my gosh, that was just, it was perfect. Everything came together in exactly the way you wanted?
I don't think I've had one where everything's come together.
I don't believe that.
But there was an amazing gig, the first outdoor gig I did at the Regent's Open Air Theatre in London. Yeah. That was sort of amazing because it was the hottest day of the year. The sun was coming down. I started singing a song, Birds, and a whole massive flock of like swans flew overhead. And then,
I love that.
And then a cat came into the thing, and I don't know, it was just one of those times where sort of nature sort of played a big part in how it felt, and it started to get cooler, and as it got cooler we was doing more songs, and the live Hallelujah was recorded from then, and we did These Days there as well that were on the Relations album.
Yes.
So that's kind of that was a memorable gig.
It must feel so nice when those things happen. Just like, you are in everything. Yeah. The earth, the audience. I love that.
Yeah, I still remember being absolutely like rooted to the spot with the fear that I would fuck it up. So I don't think that ever kind of leaves you, even when it's a perfect place.
I think it can help as well. I mean, I remember I used to play in a ska band, and I used to hide behind the speaker and the monitor just so that the audience couldn't see me. And I think something just flipped, and I went, I'm going to have this now. Do you know what I mean? I was like, right, I've had enough of hiding. I'm just going to have it. And so I started wearing a suit with a black tie and, you know, proper specials outfit. and it was just a conscious decision to go, right, if I'm going to be in a ska band, I'm going to be in a ska band. And we ended up dancing about like idiots and looking the part. So
yeah, I've always thought, Kathryn, that what you're missing from your gigs are costume changes.
yeah.
Yeah, me
We need
too.
more costume changes for you and descending on wires from.
Did you come to that decision from the time I played at the Liverpool Philharmonic and I was breastfeeding and I was just like dripping everywhere?
Oh no!
Is it from that gig? Or is it? Yeah.
Playing as a mum. Was that your? Because the next quickfire question was, well, what's your worst gig? And worst, you know, you can interpret that any way you want.
I did a gig in Edinburgh, and it was a duet, so I was playing with Laura the cellist and me, and it was in two halves, and it was early on where my nerves, I used to think that I'd been playing for an hour, and then I'd come off and the people would say, well, you've been on 15 minutes. And I'd be like, I'd go, thank you very much. And come up. But it was two halves. So I'd done 15 minutes of what should have been a 45-minute set. And I had like really bad food poisoning. And I jokingly said, we'll see you in a bit. If you want to chat to me, I'll be in the toilets. Like joking, like throwing up. And then there was someone in the toilets while I was throwing up the other side of the door going, I'm just wondering if you're going to do this song or that song. So that was a pretty poor one, yeah.
Things to not say at a gig when you are feeling ill.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare. That's an absolute. If you want to talk, I'll be in the toilets. All right, come on, everyone, let's get to the loo.
So those are both as a performer. What about your favourite and your worst gigs as a punter? I mean, do you go to a lot of gigs?
Well, a lot of the time I'm working, and when I come home, I want to be home. And also, a lot of the gigs that I go and see are my friends who are on tour. So that's a sort of weird one, because you want to see your friends, and you're like, yeah, I'll just watch the gig, and then I can talk to you after.
Yeah, I suppose that's why festivals are good. You get more of an opportunity to kind of cut loose and.
Yeah, I do go and see music off my own back and pay for it as well. Just don't want to sound like a cheapskate. One of my worst gigs was I went to see Bob Dylan at Newcastle Arena, and it was Van Morrison was playing. It was like a double biller.
Right. It
just really, really, really couldn't be fucked. And he'd been my hero for so many years. And
he's the ultimate for that. Literally everyone who's ever seen Dylan or anything has that story. I've seen him a few times because I used to work at Cardiff Arena, and one of the worst gigs I've ever seen in my whole life was, you know, one of his. You can see him on a day and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's Dylan, that is brilliant. And then the next day, he's just not bothered, and it's utter rubbish. Dylan is so weird like that.
Yeah, I mean, for someone who writes such amazing melodies, I saw him at Manchester Arena, and I think there was only one melody that I could recognise, because he was just all over the place.
Yeah, I talked to Leonard Cohen's tour manager, and he said that like Cohen was playing one night, and he'd been asked to go and see Dylan was playing the next night, and he went to the show, and they had a box and everything, and then he left after a couple of songs and just said, no, this isn't for me. So yeah,
really?
even Leonard Cohen left.
No way. That makes me feel so better about slagging off Dylan. It's not good enough for Leonard, it's not good enough for me.
Well, I'll tell you this. This'll make you laugh. So I was doing the Glastonbury at the. I was doing the Park stage. Oh yeah, thanks. I was doing the Park stage with Neil McCall the year our album came out, and so Leonard Cohen. I was like, oh, we're going to get to see Leonard Cohen. We can see it from the Park stage. We've got backstage drive. Anyway, Suzanne comes up over the speakers, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be so brilliant. And Louis at the time was a little boy, and he just wanted to go back to the hotel. So we drove past the back of of the Pyramid stage with like my favourite singer, and Louis was crying, well, what famous Sam? So this like Suzanne went like, you know, disappeared as the windows went up, and then when you hear the 5 hours,
Sam tan,
yeah, Fireman Sam,
solid fireman.
So that did make me feel like I was a good mom for you know, sacrificing that. You
are a great mum.
Great gigs. We went to see Fleet Foxes with their first record. That was amazing, and it was in Newcastle, and that just was electric. I've seen loads of really good gigs.
Do you prefer seeing an artist at their own gig or at a festival?
Well, I quite like discovering things at festivals, but I think festivals are that strange dichotomy that like they're not that like it. They're really difficult for certain kinds of music if you want to sort of feel lively and stuff, but you can't. I don't think you can always immerse yourself in the same way for the sort of music I like. So yeah, I have seen some lovely mellow stuff in the afternoon on a Sunday in Glastonbury where you sit down on the grass and you know, you feel like that's beautiful. And I've seen, you know, really exciting things, but I think that becomes more of an event that music just happens to be there. I think it's more about like the communion of like a mass amount of people all doing the same thing. It's not about the intricacies of music, and I think lots of people who play festivals find them really, really difficult. I
know what you mean about that, everyone doing it, because one of my favourite musical moments was that at Glastonbury, and it was Beth Orton, and on the Pyramid stage, you know, the right time. I'm almost sure, I'd happily be corrected, that it was Sunday afternoon and everyone sat down. It was just gorgeous and it was just perfect, and everything about it was just wonderful. But I can imagine it can be difficult, especially for a certain genre of musician like yourself. You know, you need to be a bit more Coldplay so you can headline on a Sunday night. That's what you need. Costume changes and Chris Martin, Kathryn. Come on.
Thank you very much.
So we've got to bring this to an end, because I would talk to you forever and ever. And we like to finish by having people's live album recommendations or live track. So do you listen to a lot of recorded live music, you know, live albums?
We've got quite a lot of older live stuff, and I've got a fan that is a big bootlegger who sends me lots of rare and bootlegged stuff, so that's really good. So I've heard lots of like Cohen albums and tours of like Carole King and Joni Mitchell, Nick Drake rarities and stuff like that. So brilliant. That's but my favourite live album, which I think stands on its own as a thing, is the Sufjan Stevens Carrie and Lowell live tour, because I love that album, but then the live version of that album is insane, because you don't think you can love in a different way, but you do. It's sort of it becomes quite sort of.
Do you prefer listening to the live version?
I don't prefer it, but I listen to them both equally as much now.
Right,
And
okay.
like, there's certain times where I think when I was driving myself around on tour, I listened to the live album loads, because there's just those moments that lift off in a different way. Like the album itself is very intimate, and it's like atmospheres and stuff, but the live one really kicks off in a live band. That interaction of a live band, it's amazing.
I love that. We will put that as a link. Sufjan Stevens, what a performer. I love him.
He's a dude.
Yeah, he really. Oh, have you sung with him?
No, only in the car.
That's what he says about Kathryn Williams, I reckon. Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kathryn.
It's a pleasure.
No, it's our pleasure, and you're just amazing. And I really can't wait till we actually see you in person live again. And if you've not heard one of my favorite live tracks, and I tell this to everyone, and I listen to it loads, is your cover version of Dancing in the Dark. It's
thank you.
It's just amazing. So if you haven't heard that, have a listen. Kathryn Williams, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
What an episode. What a woman. She's just amazing. She's outstanding, Kathryn. And I genuinely just love that voice. And
it's beautiful. It's really distinct and really subtle and really tuneful. Do you know what I mean? Singers should be tuneful, but hers is just really beautiful on the note. Lovely.
Yeah, loads of nuance, and it's just fabulous. And I mean, I've forgotten just how funny she is as well.
Oh, yes, she's a hoot.
That all Scousers are, and that was so much fun. But it was also nice to talk about some serious things as well, and that links into the last episode with Clint Boone, where we spoke about nerves.
Yeah.
And Clint spoke about nerves and just using bravado.
Yeah.
You know, walking on onto stage to a home gig, and just swallowing it and just going, come on, let's
Boone Army. Boone Army were his actual words. But I think he had that kind of, well, he was in a band, so it's a strength in numbers, but as a solo artist, it must be really crippling if that's something that you have to deal with. And it was really interesting hearing her talk about that. I mean, I know that when I've played in the past, certainly one band that I played with a band called the Uplifters, and it was at a time when I had not been playing the sax for ages. I'd not played it, and I realised that I hadn't had anything creative in my life for a significant amount of time, several years.
Was that just circumstance? That
Just things happened, and you end up just working, and you kind of don't give time to the things that give you an outlet, an expressive outlet, and so I decided to kind of bite the bullet, and I thought, right, I'll join a band, but let's join a band where I don't know much about the music. And I'd not really been much of a ska fan. I mean, I liked a bit of madness, but I certainly didn't know much about Bad Manners or the Specials or the Beat or Selector. So I joined the Uplifters, and I was a complete fish out of water and really nervous. So much so that I hid behind the big speakers in some of the gigs that we played.
When you were on stage?
Yeah. I just hid. Yeah. And that was we used to play quite a lot of do you know the Witchwood in Ashton-under-Lyne?
No, I don't think I do.
Proper punk ska the pub
Oh, wow.
and venue. They used to have scooter rallies that would congregate there and then head back there after they'd been to the seaside and back, and then they'd put on these ska gigs. And we played a few. We did some support gigs with Bad Manners and The Beat, and
No way.
yeah, did Neville Staple as well. But we did Bad Manners a couple of times and The Beat a couple of times. And it was brilliant. Such a lovely crowd. The ska crowd were beautiful.
But how else did you? Because it is good to learn about other people's coping mechanisms. When you hid behind a speaker, what else did you do? Because
What I
was that
did,
it?
well, no. So I hid behind a speaker, and then each subsequent gig, I moved slightly further away from the speaker and into the stage, so that people could
So
see
you
what
were
I mean.
literally one step at a time.
Pretty much, yeah. It was yeah, literally one step beyond the speaker. Yeah, so that was it, and also it also coincided with me deciding to go full ska and getting the black suit and the thin black tie and suiting up, so I could almost. It's putting a costume on. So I mean, that was something that I could do with that band because we were like, let's look the part. But loads of people have different ways of dealing with it, and it'd be interesting to hear if people listening to this have their own experience of stage fright or nerves before a musical performance, and how they either manage to turn it round or if they're still dealing with it and are looking for ways to address it. So.
Mine was always because when, although it was different between whether I was on stage or on camera, and when I first started presenting on TV, I couldn't go and hide behind the camera. But it was more, I think it was more physical. So it was breathing. And I'd have, when I was sat in the makeup chair before going into studio, it was taking that time to relax everything, to breathe and just feel prepared.
Yeah.
Now, there's only so prepared you can be because we would record, 30, 40 links a day or however many. So you can't know all those words. But I'd have the first one. And so I'd go in, and I think a good start, really helps. So I'd go in relaxed. I was confident with the first link, rehearse it once, and then boom, put it on the camera. And that would, help me settle in. But yeah, it would be good to hear from listeners how they cope, and also hearing from future guests, whether they're performers, DJs, authors. People will face nerves in their working life and in other parts of life, and handle them differently. And it's good to learn and pick from each other's experience, isn't it? So that was great, and loads of love and loads of thanks to Kathryn for joining us today. It was a privilege. She's wonderful, and keep an eye out in the coming weeks for live dates. I'm not telling you anything I shouldn't there. I have no clue if she's going to be announcing dates. Not at all.
But also keep an eye out for her new book, her first novel, The Ormering Tide, which it does look quite special.
I will be getting myself a copy, and I'll be getting myself a ticket to see her, because if you've not seen her live, you really should. It's a beautiful evening. Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Kathryn, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.